Welcome in. It's another edition of Where the 99 Lead, a presentation of the University of Pikeville. I'm Andrew Joyce, and we talk about all things regarding the University of Pikeville, academically and athletically, and Where the 99 Lead. It's a program name that came from the historic 99 steps that lead to the University of Pikeville campus, but they also lead from campus into the community and into the world. Good afternoon. I'm joined by Dr. John Howie, Professor of Psychology at the University of Pikeville. Dr. Howie, welcome in.
Thank you, sir.
And of course, before we go too far, we need to introduce folks that don't know Dr. John Howie. Let's talk about your bio, your background, where you come from, and how you arrived in Pikeville some 20 plus years ago.
Yeah, some 21 years ago I got here from the University of Dallas, down there in Dallas, Texas. Which is a Catholic university.
Yes.
We had James Hillman there, who is, I would say, the person who's coming after Freud and Jung, is one of the most important Jungian analysts.
Wow.
So they didn't quite know what an archetypal psychologist was, and I kind of haven't quite told them yet what it is. So,
yes.
But I seem to be getting away with it this long. When I was in Japan, I said, have you ever seen Back to the Future? And they say, oh yeah, the professor, oh yeah, the professor. So immediately recognized that I seem to be the stereotype of a professor somehow.
Very good.
On both sides of the ocean there.
Very good. I like it. And of course, Professor of Psychology at the University of Pikeville. You've been in that role teaching psychology classes for the entire 20 plus years you've been there.
21 years, since 1991.
You've seen a lot of change.
Oh yeah, and lots of perturbations, and it's really nice to see how well it's doing now.
Yes.
Because 3 years ago it looked like it was about to go under, and then we went from 600 students to 1,200 students, and we're looking really good. With the Cole building on campus, right on one side of the 99,
sure,
and the Memorial building on the other side, we're doing well now. Which is
as a
nice
professor, what's your perspective? I'm curious your perspective. The change in students that have arrived on campus, doubled in number, yeah, numerically, there's a huge change. But the type of students?
We have, hasn't changed that much, although we are getting more international students and stuff. We hope to get up to 10% international students ultimately. And this is what a liberal arts college, or any university actually, needs to do to present people to the world. I mean, the world's becoming a global village if we don't blow ourselves up first.
Sure.
But as long as we don't, we need to communicate with one another. And that's one of the things that I try to do with our students, is to get them to open their eyes to what it means to be a global citizen, citizen of the world. And in some ways they have a better feel for it. For instance, the local community here there's a good sense of extended family. There's a sense of a collective of people who can work together to do things. And lots of parts of the world have that kind of thing.
Let's talk something about the psychology program at the university in general and what it entails.
Psychology is probably one of the best degrees you can get to go into almost any field. I've had nursing students, I've had lawyers, medical school students and stuff, and they'll go on in that, but their background in psychology allows them to work with people, which is what you have to do in
sure,
medicine, which I'm not sure the medical school always knows that. And lawyers as well are a lot better off in the classroom if they know what they're looking at in terms of that person. Unfortunately, sometimes they're not looking at the best sorts of people there. But
right,
if they know a little bit about abnormal psychology, they're not intimidated or thrown off by that.
And I've heard this so many times that a psychology major can land in any type of occupation, any type of career. Let's go further into detail. Why is that?
Well, what we do with the psychology program is try to appeal to the whole person, mind, body, soul, and spirit. So
sure,
we appeal to the spiritual and the soulful side, as well as the more cognitive and behaviorist kind of thing. And psychology tries to cover both sides of that. There are very few programs outside of places like Harvard and Stanford and stuff that go as far as I think we have gone with the program here at Pikeville. So we have a kind of unique opportunity to go further than some of the more mainstream psychology things. I really don't like the people who just run rats and stuff. I call them rodentophiliacs because
Yes.
they really like to do the rodents, and we're a little step up from that, I think.
Sure.
I haven't met any rats who actually read poetry, so.
Psychology offered as a major at the University of Pikeville.
And has been for the last 20 years. And we have, of course, gone through various and assorted changes
Yes.
with that particular department. Like as you say, that you can go into almost any different field.
Sure.
With psychology, and it prepares the ground. One of the things that we try to do is make sure that the student knows what is their own calling, what they want to do with the world.
Right.
And a lot of times they come in thinking, well, I want to be a doctor, a lawyer, or a teacher.
Yes.
And they don't seem to know that there are other things that you can do in the world. Not everybody's
Sure.
a doctor and a lawyer and a teacher. And so it's what Joseph Campbell calls following your bliss. Find that which you really enjoy and you're really passionate about, and then go for that, and then you won't actually feel like you're working. And I've always felt like teaching psychology is one of those things that I've always enjoyed doing. I'm good at being a teacher. I'm not quite sure what else I would be very good at.
Right.
And there's a long family tradition behind that. My father taught pediatrics at the University of Texas Medical Branch down in Galveston. I had an uncle who started Friends World College. So there's a long tradition of traveling.
Sure.
Out into the world too. Friends World College, you got a degree for traveling, and I'm not trying to give them degrees in traveling, but I think that they need to be exposed to the global perceptions that they can have that really shift the way they understand their own world.
Right.
And when you shift their worldview, the world itself can be changed because there's a co-creation of what reality you're working with there.
At the University of Pikeville, is the university doing a good job with freshman students who come in with a career goal of doctor, lawyer, teacher, not knowing the other opportunities out there, or so totally focused of helping them find their bliss?
I think that we do, and I particularly focus upon that in the general psychology class. And one of the things I got to get them to do, which I think has been very successful for the last 21 years, is get them to do a genogram of finding out what kind of strengths and weaknesses they have in their family. Sure. So they can avoid things like diabetes by changing their lifestyle early on.
Right. And
recognizing that, yeah, there's certain weaknesses that they have there in their family, but there's also the strengths that they have. And the people know their family, and there's a real deep sense of their roots in the community and stuff, which I've found really nice. Of course, they still say, "You're not from around here, are you?"
Yeah.
As soon as I open my mouth. But
that never seems to wear off. It's something about the Central Appalachian culture, I believe.
Yeah, they very well understand the local region. But I've spent quite a bit of time trying to understand, and trying to cut down on the hillbilly stereotype and
Yes.
stuff, and making people here realize that that's really not so much about them as it is about the people outside there that are kind of casting their shadow over onto us.
Sure.
And those are the people that you have to worry about,
Right.
When they're looking at you and saying, "You're like that," you have to remember when you point your finger, 3 fingers are pointing back at you.
Right.
So I make, well, maybe I better not go there, but no, there's...
We're trying to change that attitude.
We're trying to change that attitude, and one of the ways I get them to recognize that that attitude of projecting your shadow onto other people who are actually very much like you
Right.
is the attitude that some people in East Kentucky have towards the people of West Virginia, and actually vice versa.
Sure.
And in order to recognize where you want to go in the world, you have to know what your own identity is.
Sure.
And finding out what that identity is often a matter of integrating that which you have rejected previously.
Self-realization.
Self-realization. Oh, you've got all the
I
terms
feel like
down
I'm
there.
back in college on a campus somewhere. Joined by Dr. John Howie, professor of psychology at the University of Pikeville. And you talk about earning a degree in travels. You're certainly well on your way. You've spanned the globe, including Belize, Machu Picchu, Peru, Canada, Argentina, India, and Japan. I feel like I've just taken a look at your passport. And you've made the world your classroom. Let's talk about some of your experiences and some of those travels.
Well, most recently I was in Machu Picchu and Cusco down in Peru. And Peru recently went through a kind of bad time in the 90s where they had the Sendero Luminoso, which was the Shining Path guerrillas, and they were killing lots of people. So.
Sure.
But now they're not, so it's a really good tourist spot. And Cusco is the capital of the Inca Empire, or was the capital of the Inca Empire, some 500 years ago. And I was there like 40 years ago, but this time was a little different. They have parades in the streets and festivals almost every day because it's close to the, well, for them it's the winter solstice, June 21st.
Right.
Okay, and they'll have a festival on the hill that's called the Festival of the Sun. So you have all of this Inca stuff, but over the top of the Inca stuff is built the Spanish. And so there's this syncretism, or this conjunction between the Inca and the Spanish, which is a very interesting amalgamation of those two aspects of the human spirit. And at the same time, the Inca had no writing, no wheels, and no money. I mean, they didn't even have a monetary system.
Sure. What
they basically did was give everybody corn to come in and be part of the system there and stuff.
Wow.
And they were very good at ethnobotany, of creating different forms of corn. There's like 200 species of corn and a couple thousand species of potatoes. And we're left with the russet, right? I mean, we should get a few more species. They have a species of potatoes that actually has more protein than soybeans does.
Wow.
So they were very good at genetically modifying, in a way, and of course not the way we do with DNA,
sure.
but genetically modifying different things to work at different altitudes. They even have a place called Moray where they had a spiraling down into a mountain where they would, at different levels, what corn would work at this level and what would at that level and what would at that level. So they were much more clever than even the Spanish knew, who came in and conquered them.
Right.
Okay, when they were kind of taking off on how Cortez took over the Aztecs. But the way the Spanish got in, you say, well, they only had 400 people, or they only had 172, or they had these few people. Sure. Yeah, but there was a lot of people not so happy with the Inca, okay, all these other Indians. So they had like thousands of Indian allies.
Right.
Plus, they were using germ warfare. Smallpox came in before they got there.
Uh-huh.
So 40 or 50% of the population had been wiped out. And what happened with the Incas in particular was the Inca emperor had died of smallpox, and his two sons were fighting it out to see who would be boss. So there was a civil war going on in the midst of that. And the Spanish were very good at taking advantage of those kind of situations. Right. You didn't see what a lot of the Inca ruins and stuff weren't even known about until, well, one in particular, the Temple of the Sun in Cusco. They didn't know it was where the Temple of the Sun was until 1950. This is like 400 years later, because this happened in 1530. So
right.
400 years later, this earthquake happened and tore down part of the church, and there was the Temple of the Sun right there. The Spanish had just simply plastered over it.
Wow.
And then it was revealed. And that's sort of the way that is what's happening now, just as we have a Native American tradition in this country that people are revising. And I mean, used to around here, you couldn't say that you had Native American blood, sure. right? Now everybody, oh, I've got some, right? But they're allowed to speak their language down there, the Quechua. They're allowed to speak that, and a lot of their beliefs. And there's a resurgence, a renaissance of that kind of thing.
Sure.
I mean, they have a shaman shop in Cusco. So the kinds of things that may sound a little strange around here, I found to be, oh, that's normal down there in Peru. So I think that's part of the reason I travel, is I feel more normal being odd in other places. But then I bring back that oddness to here. To when people recognizes that their odd eccentricities are actually not that weird for being human. That's a real important part, is to recognize that everybody's a little strange. Sure. And of course, as a psychologist, I would try to enforce that notion.
That's part of the doctorate, isn't it?
Yeah.
Being a little strange.
I think psychologists are usually known.
Yes.
As my phone message says, this is John Howie, the abnormal psychology professor at Pikeville, implying that there might be a normal one, but that's not necessarily true either.
Yet to be found. Of course, you're talking about traveling abroad with, and you share your travels with the campus. Most recently, you've given presentations of a traveling art exhibit, and as part of the Religious Emphasis Week. Let's talk about that. How you bring your travels back to campus?
Well, they had the mask on campus from Michoacan, and I was actually in Michoacan back in 1976, the first time I was there. So, and I have my own mask collection. And the whole notion of putting on a mask is very psychological. In Jung, they call it personare, which means to sound through. And with the Greeks, they didn't have any ways to broadcast. You know, if you were in the theater, you needed an okay, here we are. And that's what the mask did, would actually amplify the voice. Right. It was like a megaphone. But you also put on masks for your social role that you have. Yes. And you can become so identified with your mask that you lose who you are. So, I'm into depth psychology, okay, yes, and have been doing dream seminars for the last 20 years at Pikeville. And that's where you, in a sense, drop your own mask and find out who you really are.
Sure.
So in my dream seminars, some people, it's dream interpretation. Well, no, you're not interpreting it from the outside. I take the students back into their dream.
Yes.
And then you can interpret it from the inside by asking, why are you chasing me, Mr. Elephant, or whatever? Because usually in a dream, you don't know that you're dreaming. And so you have to awaken to the fact that you are dreaming.
Wow. This is a half-hour show.
Oh, okay. Well, we won't have time to get enlightened by the end of it.
I was going to say, we could go deeper, but we may need to extend this to another show. Many people would say that instead of the self-realization, that a lot of times Americans will put on masks to fit whatever situation they're in.
Oh, yeah, and in terms of making a chameleon thing.
Maybe not necessarily a physical mask.
Uh-huh. And try to play the role that they think other people want them to play.
Exactly.
But you can lose yourself that way all too quickly and not know who it was that you originally wanted to be. And that can be imposed by your parents as well. And your parents don't, and our students today, they're going into a world that's going to be a little bit different, and the changes are coming down a lot faster than they have in the past. So we have to prepare the students to get ready for those shifts, those sudden shifts and changes, and they're happening.
Dr. John Howie, professor of psychology at the University of Pikeville, our guest on this edition of Where the 99 Lead, and those 99 steps lead to the world. Dr. John Howie, of course, with travels across the world, and recently you had a presentation with the Religious Emphasis Week.
That's
what did
actually
you bring to
next
campus?
Tuesday. This is tomorrow.
It's coming up.
Yes, it's tomorrow, 7 o'clock, Chrisman Auditorium. I will give a PowerPoint presentation on Machu Picchu and Cusco.
Okay, let's hear about that presentation, just a little sneak preview.
My course is called Eco-Psychology. From Cusco, which is the capital city, to Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu was one of the few places that was not discovered by the Spanish, because the Inca emperor was able to hold on for 30 or 40 years hiding out somewhere else. In that period of time, Machu Picchu got covered by the jungle, so the Spanish never found it. And the Andes have these suspension bridges. It's hard to find things. I mean, talk about head of the holler. You're talking about head of the holler in the Andes. You're talking way far away.
And no GPS.
And no GPS at all, right? Although they do have actually a global positioning device in terms of their archaeoastronomy, which means the old astronomy that they were doing.
Sure.
They're very accurate astronomers. The Spanish thought it was superstition because they didn't know enough about astronomy to know that these people actually knew what they were doing. So, and that was what I mentioned earlier about the winter solstice, when the sun is at its furthest point away, and then it turns around. And they have a hitching post of the sun, because they believe that you had to get the sun to come back because it might keep going on. Now, that's kind of superstitious.
Yes.
But they were very accurate in knowing when it was going to turn around and come that way. And they would carve, in Ollantaytambo, they carve a face on the mountain that on the winter solstice, the sun appears right there behind the face of that. So they're very visual in representation, and that continues to this day. They're some of the most artistic people I've ever seen in terms of contemporary art, and they're good at art because they're really a visual way of learning, because they didn't have the written language.
Sure.
So they had an oral tradition, of course, but they also would see things visually. So they'll make Machu Picchu, for instance, looks like a condor when you're up above it and stuff. It has the shape of a condor, and condor is one of their They're archetypally sacred creatures is the condor. It's kind of like that's the spiritual dimension, and then the present day dimension is in terms of the puma or the cougar, and then the lower dimension is in terms of the serpent, and they see life in terms of that. They also have a very interesting concept of aini, which is reciprocal giving, that everybody gives, and they bring this all the way to the earth, which has a sense of making our life on earth sustainable, is that you give back to the earth because it's gifted to you.
Sure.
So that kind of relationship with the planet is probably a good way to help us sustain ourselves as a species on this particular planet.
And you will bring some of that art back to campus.
Oh, yes. I'm sure I'm going to buy another poncho for sure.
Dr. Howie, you returned to Machu Picchu in 2013, and you'll be teaching in a summer program and a special topics course in psychology, eco-psychology from Cusco. Talk more about that.
Eco-psychology, I still have difficulty trying to describe what that is because it's a mix of ecology and psychology. But it's taking how we interact with the earth and how we sustain ourselves on the planet,
sure,
and looking at the earth as, well, they have a name for it. It's called Pachamama. That's their name for Mother Earth.
Pachamama.
Pachamama. And I've always thought Pachamama has a, oh yeah, don't mess with my Pachamama. I mean, it has a certain sense of, yes, this is the earth, and we need to, continue to have, to breathe and to drink water and stuff. We
right,
need to have a relationship that doesn't completely mess up our own environment.
And the relationship of giving back to the earth what the earth has given to us.
Yeah, and I think that people in Eastern Kentucky have a sense of that,
yes,
and the sense of home place. And I did a course in parapsychology, which is a branch off of eco-psychology, and had students do that. And I've always been impressed with how close people feel to the earth here, which is the advantage you have of being a rural community,
sure,
I think. You recognize that you're indebted to the earth, and that in turn the earth will give back to you.
You'll be teaching abroad in the summer of 2013. How are students different there than at the University of Pikeville?
In Peru?
Yes.
Well, they have, well, when you're outside of the main corridors of power and stuff, and not in the United States and things like that, you recognize, I think more quickly in some ways, how much the world is interconnected. So they've gotten really into tourism and stuff. Their food was awesome. I did not know that the food was going to
really
be so delicious. Who's heard of Peruvian cuisine, right?
Sure.
But they have said, oh yeah, we're going to have the best. They have ceviche, which is a raw fish thing that's cooked in, well, it's cooked. Well, you put lemon and lime on it, and the acidic thing cooks it a little bit. And this ceviche is even better than the sushi.
Wow.
I was comparing them, and it was just really delectable. And alpaca. Alpaca was my favorite to eat. Now, alpacas are cute.
Yes.
But they really taste. They have zero cholesterol.
Okay.
And it tastes like filet mignon or something.
You've got my attention.
Yes, it's really good. Don't try the llama. The llama tastes like horse.
They're spitters.
Yeah. Well, yeah, both of those are.
Yes.
Actually, the alpaca and the llama were the same species that then the Inca separated out into two different types. The alpaca has finer wool to it than the llama does, but the llama's better, a beast of burden. It will carry a little bit. It only carries like 100 pounds, though, and then it starts spitting.
Yes.
But they're really nice to sleep with because they're warm, and it gets very cold at night when you're at 11,000 feet. You do have to be, at that height, of course,
sure,
you tend to get, the first couple, 3 days, you have to take it easy.
Right.
I think there was a basketball team that went up and, well, we're macho, we can do this. And
yes.
they all got sick as dogs because you can't do that much until you adjust to the altitude there.
Joined by Dr. John Howie, our guest on this edition of Where the 99 Lead. And, of course, we bring you all things regarding the University of Pikeville. Dr. John Howie, professor of psychology at the University of Pikeville, traveling abroad, teaching abroad. And you also have mentioned the Incans and the Incan ruins. Let's talk a little about that and some of the other the churches that you've seen in Cusco and places that you've traveled.
When the Spanish came in, the, the Spanish Catholics are kind of odd when they come into a place. They don't want you to be pagans anymore. But actually, the only office of a Holy Inquisition that's still active in the world is in Cusco, Peru.
Okay.
So the Catholics still have their office of Holy Inquisition down there.
Wow.
But when they come in, there'll be festivals that the local indigenous people have, but they'll turn them around a little bit. So in Mexico, for instance, they did the same sort of thing in Mexico. There was a festival of the green god and the yellow god. They said, well, let's make it the Christians and the Moors, and we'll keep on as the same thing. So there's this thin overlay of what the Spanish Catholics had brought in. At the same time, they allow a little bit of continuation. So it's an interesting amalgam of two very different cultures. And the Spanish in Peru had to, they used the Inca system of gathering the monies and stuff, or the corn and the silver and the gold and stuff from the different communities.
Sure.
Because the Andes are so ecologically diverse that you wanted fish from the sea, they could get that to Cusco, fresh fish, within a couple of days with the runners on their roads. They actually had more roads, like 26,000 miles of roads. They had more roads than the Romans had. Their empire was larger than that. But it had only grown up in the last 100 years before the Spanish got there.
Right.
So and when our students go and see that alternative worldview, they also, when you come back to this culture, I've always said when I go overseas, I never get any culture shock over there because, well, this is going to be strange, okay? Sure. The first time I went was to Bolivia when I was 14, and then I went to India when I was 16, and it's strange, and you adjust, and then you come home. That's where you really get the insights into your own self.
Right.
Because it doesn't look normal to you. I mean, one time I came back and I didn't talk for 2 weeks, and me not talking is weird.
Yes.
But, I mean, it was strange to even go into the grocery store or Walmart. Suddenly it had a strange, different thing. So you learn a whole lot about yourself by having been in such a different place, and you hadn't realized that you had changed subtly.
Right.
And that's what the global experience does for our students. When I go to teach in Cusco, I wanted to correct that. I'm actually going to be taking students from University of Pikeville to go there. We have Robert Music is going to take people on a service trip to Haiti.
Sure.
The biology department's going to Belize. We have a course in China, and me in Peru. So, and I've been working for this the last 12 years, and I am so happy that finally the University of Pikeville recognizes that this is what it needs to do for our students here. For them to become citizens of the world, they need to have a taste of that. And that way, they'll be prepared for the world that is coming our way.
Ultimately, what does the travel abroad, these type of experiences, mean for a student at the University of Pikeville?
They're truly transformational. You take a geeky guy who doesn't even know how to, he's just kind of nervous and doesn't know quite who he is or what he is. And then, and I'm speaking of a student, I won't say his name, but and then he went to England and he comes back and he knows who he is. He has a sense of who he is. And getting a sense of who you are is often easier to do, oddly enough, by being outside of what you're accustomed to. So you take them outside of their zone of comfort, if you will. And once they get outside of that, they become more comfortable with who they really were. They didn't realize that they were actually uncomfortable in their own skin until they got out of their skin. And I'm going to get paradoxical here in a second.
We may have to book another show. We're almost out of time. Dr. John Howie, professor of psychology at the University of Pikeville, our guest. And Dr. Howie, as you talk about the study abroad program, how do you recruit UPike students to be a part of that? And where can a student who might be interested to learn more about it find the information they need?
At our global education office that we have now on the 4th floor of the Armington building.
Very good.
Or in my office as well. You're welcome to come by, and I'll be more than willing to talk to you about that. And this is one of the things that the University of Pikeville offers, is a vision of the world that will help us change our world here at home.
University of Pikeville students, if you're tuned in and you'd like to learn more about the study abroad program, you can talk with Dr. John Howie, our guest. Thanks so much for your time. We do need to book another show.
Okay.
Dr. John Howie, professor of psychology at the University of Pikeville. You've been tuned to Where the 99 Lead.